Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone out there. Welcome to Metaverse 1, and we are in room 1 for our first ending keynote here today. It's been a great day with some amazing speakers, so thank you to all the speakers that have spoken already today. If you have missed any of the sessions today, do not panic. They have been recorded and you'll be able to watch those back via YouTube. We will announce on our socials when these are live and people can start watching them, but don't panic if you've missed anything, you've seen any previous ones, and you think, oh, wish I'd seen that one. The session now we have is Know What's Next, the 6 steps to prepare for the metaverse. We've got a great person here who's going to be speaking, who's a principal manager for Microsoft Teams Engineering. So if I'd like to hand over to you, Karuana.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, I'm very happy to be with all of you today. This is an exciting topic. And so we're going to talk about a little bit about the people side of what's going to happen next for this metaverse transformation that we're all stepping into. So I'm happy to be here. My name is Karuana Gatimu. I'm the principal manager of the Customer Advocacy Group. I sit in Microsoft Teams Engineering, and I do all sorts of fun stuff for collaborative apps and platforms. So we're going to dive in here and talk a little bit about what's going to be happening to us and how we'll all get an opportunity to deal with it. I do want to call out, follow us at Microsoft Adoption on Twitter, or you can follow me on LinkedIn to get more product news and information. You can, of course, follow me personally, but if you follow me personally on Twitter, you are likely to get pictures of dogs and food and vacations as well. So this is all true. So let's go ahead and hop in, and I'm going to trust the organizers to let me know, if there's any questions that I should answer in the chat. I will leave some time at the end to answer your questions. And then after me will be Pune Kaufman, and she'll talk a lot about the actual product side of the metaverse and mesh for Microsoft Teams. That's her specialty area, since she sits in that part of engineering. So between the two of us, you should be covered. So don't miss her session that will come right after this. All right, let's move on. So we're going to talk about the technology vision, broader than Microsoft Teams, more across Microsoft in general, some of the tactics and the leadership that we're all going to need to bring to the table for this, because it's really about thinking about this Venn diagram. What can we build, and what does the world actually need? There's a lot that the world needs right now, depending on who you talk to, from sustainability efforts to social justice to inclusion and opportunity for all globally in this technology revolution that is still continuing. And there's equities and capabilities to be aligned with folks, because not everyone is coming from the same place. Right now, I'm coming to you from a location that is not my primary residence, and I'm coming to you over the internet because I have the bandwidth to do so. There's many people around the world who don't have the bandwidth for some of the modern capabilities that we're talking about. So as we build for the future, we have to think about these capabilities and who's going to use them to make sure that we're empowering everybody in a useful and equal fashion. When we think about the technology that we need to build, we think about these 10 large boxes. This view of the world is directly from Satya and our L team. And we think about the way that we empower people in these particular capabilities, right? The metaverse actually doesn't exist without all of the preceding capabilities that come before it. That's why it's box number 10 here and our focus for today. But we have to have this ability to help people become cloud natives, to unify data, and to make sure that we have the platforms and capabilities that are going to move forward. So I always like to take a moment, though, to make sure that people have a little bit of a basic understanding of what the metaverse actually is. If anybody tells you they have a one and done final definition of the metaverse at this point in this transition, they would be wrong. Right? There's so much that's unknown about this new space and the way that we create digital twins and bring the physical world into the digital reality. As we have new customer engagement opportunities, new ways of even representing ourselves in an online situation, it's really important that we be open to the different capabilities that exist. Now, I am going to do one thing here because I do realize I did not click the box when I went to go and share. So hang on one second. And I will get sharing again here and make sure. Here we go. Do this in a little bit of a different way. And I think that that will be helpful. Yeah. Excellent. Okay, you all should be seeing my slides here again, and we are going to do this.
Early morning for tech. Is there anything we can help?
They says my video not playing?
It is showing. Your video is your picture video is showing, but we are seeing I'm seeing the front page.
Oh, okay.
Of
No,
your-
I was actually playing a video for you. Okay, thank you for letting me know that,
Hey.
Besa. Hang on one second. Maybe because of your stream. A second here. We'll stop again. And your configuration is going to support PowerPoint Live, right, Besa?
Yes.
Because that's where I am. Okay, great.
Yep.
Let me see. Are you seeing my 10 technologies to build what's next now?
6 steps to prepare for the metaverse. I'm
Okay,
seeing the front page.
Great. I have changed slides. Let's make sure it's changing for you.
Not yet.
Okay, I think I need to go back to standard sharing because also in ASVR, they're not seeing that. So that ASVR may not be supporting the PowerPoint Live. So let me go back to standard sharing.
Somebody saw the video, so it must have been in our end anyway.
Okay.
Interesting.
Well, everything's an experiment right now, right? Because
it is.
that is where we are at. All right, let's make sure. I am going to reshare in a standard way and make sure also that I switch devices so that my TV will come through here.
So the experience, some people were seeing that and some people weren't. So
I see. All right. Well, what we're going to do, let me do this. I will share that video after the session, and it's also available online. And
Okay.
so I don't want to, and then because it's basically a definition of some of the opportunities. So let me get back to here. You should now be seeing Azure Digital Twins.
Yes.
How's that?
Yes,
Okay,
we are seeing.
fantastic. Okay, that's good. Let's keep going then. The idea behind that video, and I'll make sure everybody gets a link to that video, but in a way, this situation proves my point. There's so many different opportunities and configurations and capabilities that are going to come with the metaverse that we really have to open our minds to experimentation, to doing something like these conference organizers are doing right here. And let me tell you, as a conference producer, it's very stressful to be trying to do something that's new, that's on this bleeding edge technology. And so a great deal of what we're going to understand and experience, especially over the next 2 years around this transition to the metaverse and integrating it into our businesses, is going to feel a little bit like that, right? And so you really have to gear yourself up for the adventure of what we're about to experience. But a good deal of it is actually happening today. Azure Digital Twins is a fundamental component of Microsoft's vision for the metaverse. And what it allows a company to do is bring their physical world into the digital reality. This is happening today. This is not, it is new technology, but it allows us to fuse the Internet of Things with business systems for predictive modeling and other capabilities. If your business has anything to do with manufacturing or retail or anything with those sorts of physical realities, this is a game changer for you because it allows you to get the information that you need from the physical world, bring it into the digital, and then manipulate it. Test new theories, test new capabilities on your manufacturing line, understand traffic patterns in your retail store, do different sorts of predictive analysis and modeling in that digital world so that you can improve and learn from the physical. I think we can all learn to all stand to learn more from our physical universe. But these are capabilities that are not, pretend. This isn't just slideware. People are doing this today with very robust results around the world. These names of companies that you see here are part of the Digital Twins Consortium, right? These founders and groundbreakers are people who are coming together to not only continue to help us develop the technology, but find new and meaningful applications for it. They're sharing knowledge. And this is a very important component of what we're doing right now. And it's about that knowledge sharing. The metaverse is not something you have to do by yourself. Whatever your business may be, look for opportunities to band together with others, to share resources and insights about how you can transform the information you have available to you, but also the way your customer journeys through it. For those of you who are out there in the metaverse watching this today, I commend you, right? You're out there having a different experience than conference organizers in the past. I had the opportunity to do some of that myself at Build last year, Microsoft Build. And if any of you have the opportunity to go and check that out, it's a worthwhile opportunity because it gives you some insights around the kinds of custom worlds that can be built. So when you think about the metaverse capabilities, I want you to think about interaction models. As I mentioned before, predicting and simulating and having autonomous control of the physical reality, tracking the past and analyzing the future, and these other capabilities you see here, monitoring, modeling, synchronizing, and replicating that physical world. These things, as they come together, provide these new capabilities that we need to integrate. The technology stack is deep. And again, of course, I sit in Microsoft Teams engineering, and so I think a lot about mesh for Microsoft Teams. But the metaverse is much bigger than that in Microsoft's view. As I mentioned, it incorporates Azure and the digital twins capability, the ability for us to have vast amounts of data at your fingertips for this kind of analysis and modeling. Azure Synapse Analytics brings that to the forefront. And more is coming, right? These capabilities, as they integrate together and you can put your hands on them, will be very interesting. I know Pranay is going to talk about Microsoft Mesh and the work we do with HoloLens and the custom worlds that we can build. But what I want to say right now is that, this being as new as it is, we're going to have a great opportunity, and you will, as customers and partners of ours, to influence how this is built and how this comes into your world. I remember the launch of Microsoft Teams. I happened to have been there for that. And one of the things that I think people underestimate is how much your feedback has altered the product itself. And the same thing will be true in the metaverse. The metaverse will need different types of governance capabilities, different types of capabilities for IT professionals. And I think it's new enough that it's, we're not 100% thinking about that yet. But more is coming, and I know that Pune will have additional details on that. There's also developer preview programs that are quite interesting. When you think about Mesh for Microsoft Teams, you think about the meeting experience, I hope, just like the one we're having right here today, right? And part of the thing that I like to focus on is the people first strategy here. Any technology is best implemented when people are at the center of the technology decisions. This is something that we coined in my team and has become really part of the ethos of Microsoft, I'm happy to say. Putting people at the center of your technology decisions allows you to have a more robust approach to implementing new technology. And video fatigue is a real thing. For many of us, we've now been on video for multiple years. The pandemic has changed the way that we interact with each other, the way that we interact with our work. Some of us have returned to the office, some of us haven't, some of us have a fully hybrid model. But we like to think about how do we make hybrid work actually work, right? And that means that we have to be inclusive to the different situations and styles that people have in this kind of a medium. Having expressive avatars built into our product allows us to do that. But I want to also, caution you that not everyone is going to have the same reaction to avatars. Even inside of Microsoft, as we test these capabilities, people have different feelings about them. And so that's okay. That's exactly what happens when new and emerging technology starts to be experienced by the humans who will ultimately continue to design and implement it. But what we could also do is we can change the kind of spaces that we're in. Many of you know that now, as I mentioned, you're watching out there in the virtual reality. I had the opportunity to go to the World Economic Forum's virtual world that they created recently. And it was really a fantastic way to see their ideas and their policies come to life and to interact with people in a different way. Because I'm not really a gamer or that nature, I had to get used to it. I had to get used to being able to bop around that digital world. And once I did, I became a convert. You'll hear people who say, "Oh, no, these things aren't that necessary and they won't catch on," but they will, because not only will they become ubiquitously available inside of something like Microsoft Teams, but the ability to customize the space for the meeting experience and for the customer experience is something that digital natives will come to expect. Of course, because we're Microsoft, these things work with the rest of the collaborative apps and platform stack. So being able to have whiteboards in those digital spaces, being able to share presentations and video and other components, and do it in a more natural way is super important to the nature of what comes next, those immersive spaces. It's also important that virtual experience feel like you. One of the things I was happiest about was my ability to customize my avatar. So it felt like me. It had on a purple leather jacket. She had on braids. I was able to match my skin color. All of these things are important when you're representing yourself. And some people, like myself, may want it to be reasonably accurate to what I look like in real life, and other people may want to change it altogether. That's the flexibility and inclusiveness that's built in Mesh for Microsoft Teams and our avatar components. We're also building it for that inclusivity and safety from the very beginning. I'm sure Pune will talk more about that, but the idea that you have a safety bubble around you in a virtual world, you're in charge of that, it's on by default, and these kinds of capabilities are built into the product as we continue to innovate with it. And again, here, being able to have these sorts of interactions in these ambient spaces that we can configure and customize and actually be an extension of the culture that's in your physical space, right? And so being able to customize these is very important so that you can have employees or customers have a recognition of the digital world that they're enjoying with you. So many good things about this. And one of the things about this is that there's no devices required, right? So if you want to have a more immersive experience, as some as you may be doing right now, and have on a headset, you can certainly do that, and that will extend and deepen your experience. But even people without devices of that nature will be able to participate in this digital experience as it manifests itself in Microsoft Teams. And so that's a really important component of making this technology ubiquitous across the types of experiences that will become available. Right? Here's your standard Microsoft Teams meeting. I chose to come to you in the physical form today. I don't have my avatar on, but I certainly have in meetings inside Microsoft. And as these capabilities come to general availability, you'll start to see more folks pop up in meetings with their avatars on. And again, it really does combat video fatigue. It can make folks who never have their video cameras on suddenly be participating in meetings in a different and more interactive way. And again, I encourage folks who maybe haven't experienced this, when it becomes available to you, that preview becomes available, make sure that you give this a try, because your experience, folks like you who would attend a conference like this, so you're interested in the metaverse, you probably understand more than the average person about it, you will be the front line in explaining to others why this is important. Much like we used to have to explain why collaborating on a document or co-authoring was important, or even why we had to explain why the internet was important, you all will be explaining the metaverse and why these sorts of experiences are necessary as we think about different ways to connect together in these new capabilities. This little video, hopefully you're seeing this little Giphy demonstration of the space, and I don't want to steal any of Pune's thunder. I'm sure that she's going to talk more fully through this, but it's just giving you a little bit of a view of what's happening in the kinds of Microsoft Teams experiences that will be coming to you very soon. So I now want to focus a little bit more on the business side and this preparation, because it's really important that you think about the scenarios that you're going to select where you're going to implement the metaverse. And remember, the policies that we have around IT pro governance of our tenants, of our environments, the best practices we've used for adoption in terms of having early adopters and then focusing on business scenarios to transform, that all applies here too, right? This isn't any different than anything else when it comes to the best practices of how we need to approach it. Right, thinking about scenarios like remote expertise, training together, different types of meetups, the kinds of scenarios that are shown on the slide here to connect and even co-create materials together. All of these things are important to understand how will that impact in a positive way your business environment. Any technology that's not connected to business outcomes is not long for your world. Right. And so that's why I think it's so important for folks as they're thinking about the metaverse to really be thinking about the different types of scenarios that you're going to be applying this to. Nothing will happen if we don't build this new technology in an accessible way. Microsoft is tremendously committed to making sure that the metaverse is inclusive, it's safe, it's secure, and it has all of the capabilities that will ensure the accessibility of the experience for folks who may have different abilities. And so everything we do, everything we test, everything we build is based on these principles. And I'm very happy to be able to say that. I'm not sure that some of the other builders out there in the world are as deeply committed to the accessibility components of the metaverse as we are, but I'm very happy that we are. And so this is another area where if you have specific feedback for us, if you are engaging in one of our early adopter programs, make sure you're sharing your feedback. We can only be as inclusive, we can be inclusive, and make our best efforts, but it's end user feedback that really allows our products to be their best. And this is definitely true in this particular area. All right, so that's a little bit about the metaverse and what it is and what it can do for us. Now let's think about our preparation for it. You've already heard me say we want to put our people first. Who are the people in your organization that you want to have benefit from your endeavors in the metaverse? Is it customers? Is it business partners? Is it your own employees? Is it a combination of all three? Making sure to put those people and their core personas and needs in the center of your technology decisions is going to ensure you head down a good path. Identifying those scenarios. We're going to talk about each one of these capabilities here and preparation steps that you'll all be taking as we move forward. So we talked about architecting for equity, that first principle of putting people first. But, I also want to mention, if you don't have an active feedback mechanism in your organization, if you are a tenant administrator and you haven't looked at the M365 feedback portal, or maybe you're not previewing yet our experience insights that have just recently been released, now's the time. You want to make sure that listening becomes your superpower. And you could be a developer, you could be an IT professional, you could be a business user, whatever your role might be in this metaverse transformation that we're running. That ability to hear what your business leaders and stakeholders and end users are saying is going to be the rudder you need to navigate all the changes that a company like Microsoft will continue to deliver in this area. And it's also worthwhile to review your security and organizational policies, your governance that you may already do around Microsoft 365 groups, for instance. Does your employee community, for instance, have a code of conduct? Things of that nature, making sure that you have guest setup done correctly. These fundamentals, both technical and programmatic and personal, are how you action that people first strategy. And so checking the boxes on these before you ever even venture into the new technologies that we have available for you are really important. The employee experience is key, because we really have to understand how our technology projects represent an investment in the talent we have in our companies. There's a good deal of movement happening across different sectors of industry right now. People are seeking more rewarding, more meaningful, more flexible jobs. Now is the time to really be clear about investing in the talent in your organization. And you will need more of it as you go into the metaverse. There'll be new and different kinds of people you'll want to bring into your organization. And so having clarity about how employees feel and how that translates to your customer experience is another superpower that you can dig into. And whether you're leveraging Microsoft Viva, our employee experience platform, or not, you can be thinking about how your employees are feeling and how are you investing in the talent in your organization. Technology, of course, makes us all successful, but it's actually the people using the technology that do that. So we want to make sure that we have that, core focus there. Next, we want to really be clear about the different types of business scenarios that we want to apply this to. And I want to make sure to focus on this a little bit in the sense that, this is one of my passion areas. Writing the adoption framework for Microsoft 365 and the service adoption specialist course. If there's one superpower that I really want everyone to have, besides listening, it's the ability to identify business scenarios so you can connect the appropriate technology to it. I'm a business solution architect. That's what I've been doing for the last 25 years. And it's unfortunately not as obvious a skill as you may think. And now is the time to build your business solution architect skills so that you can identify those actionable and foundational scenarios that will make the metaverse fundamental to your business. Now, maybe you need to go back and make sure the collaboration is fundamental to your business first, but sometimes new capabilities are the thing that will allow you to do that. Also, it's very important to think about preparing your early adopters and fostering that sense of collaboration and experimentation. Again, commending the conference organizers here for trying new things, for embracing new technology, for trying new capabilities in an actual live event. That takes courage. And maybe you have that and maybe you don't, and that's okay. But you want to make sure that you have a team of people around you with which you can do that experimentation. Trust is so important when implementing new technology between you and the users that you serve. And I do believe this opportunity is limitless, but I know that time is not. And the continuous integration, continuous delivery principles that you can bring into transforming these core scenarios you identify means that it's an iterative process. That's going to be important for you because, of course, Microsoft is going to be iterating mesh capabilities, mesh configurations. If you go back and look at the first version of Microsoft Teams from 5+ years ago, it looks very different than it is today. And you can expect the same with mesh as well. But these kinds of capabilities, these kinds of scenarios that exist, frankly, in many businesses need transformation already, right? And especially post-pandemic, though technically we're not post-pandemic yet. It depends upon where you are in the world, but we're certainly living with the pandemic and have gone through the initial phases of it. These different types of scenarios need to be looked at, right? How are you modernizing your workplace and strengthening their partnerships with folks? How are you optimizing operations so that you're being as efficient as possible, right? Are you making sure to band together with other people in your industry to co-sell and maybe do customer engagement differently and support? Of course, we know about the supply chain. And the supply chain needs our digital twin capabilities so that we can drive more streamlined operations there. Each one of these boxes, of these scenarios that are available from a commercial business sense can benefit from our work. But we have to, as subject matter experts, understand the existing scenarios well enough that we know how to apply the technology to it. I should also mention that there is a version of this slide that I do for public sector. And when we think about the metaverse in terms of how it can transform our interaction with healthcare providers, with government offices, even in some of our different types of state and local government organizations, and for incident response, these sorts of things are also coming. And so while the public sector component or adoption may be a little bit slower, they are, folks are looking at how it can create a better citizen experience around the world. I'm pretty excited about that part, actually. Anything I can do to help create a better citizen experience is definitely a good thing. But I mentioned that it's not necessary to go it alone. You want to make sure that you are looking around in your business sector, or maybe it's just in your personal network, and band together with other organizations or people who are going through this transition as well. Maybe one of your colleagues, one of your partner organizations from the supply chain that you work in has a better handle on some of the developer capabilities for actually building worlds. But you happen to be very good, your organization, at training and driving the adoption of them. What if you banded together? This is the nature of the consortium that I mentioned earlier in the session as well. Being able to share time and knowledge and learnings, finding these opportunities can make friends out of competitors, and that can be very useful in a time like this. Now, of course, I'm not talking about giving away your competitive, advantage. I'm not suggesting that, but I am saying that from a business perspective, and again, even personally, now is the opportunity to leverage the skills of each other as we go through this transition. Now I want to turn to the different kinds of skills that are going to be necessary in the metaverse. Of course, core business solution architects, IT professionals, tenant administrators, trainers, all of those kinds of roles that existed before in your organization will again be tapped to help deliver this new collaborative experience. But there's more. I don't know about your organization, but in many companies that I work with around the world, 3D design skills aren't a part of the talent pool in that organization. But now, if you want to be able to customize some of these worlds with the Udemy or some of the other 3D engines that exist out there today, those are the kinds of capabilities that you'll need. World builders is going to be a thing. It already is in many sectors. Those of you who've had a lot of experience in the virtual world as it exists today know this. Certainly in gaming and in media and in other places, world building is a thing, but it's going to continue to expand. So I look at this as an opportunity for you as an individual. If you want to change the trajectory of your career right now, as a person in this community, now is a fantastic time to start to learn some of these additional skills. And if you're a business stakeholder, if you're a person who runs one of these organizations, or maybe a Microsoft partner, now's the time to think about bringing these talents into the type of folks that you have in your organization. It's really important to embrace the different capabilities that people will need. This creative talent and developers. One of my biggest skills is the ability to visualize an event in my mind and make it happen in the three-dimensional world. Well, now I also need to be able to do that in the virtual world, and I'm bringing that creative talent to my job. I'll tell you, when I started learning SharePoint, 15, almost 20 years ago now, I wasn't thinking about that. I wasn't thinking that all of my theater background and my creative talents are going to be so useful in my technology job, but they are absolutely critical. My ability to produce events, to understand video production and three-dimensional world generation is something that I can now bring into my technology day job that I've had for a long time. So if you've always had a creative side hustle, now's the time to bring it into your tech job. And if you're a leader of any sort of team out there, or even just for yourself, make sure that you're rewarding the growth mindset here. The people who will succeed in the implementation of the metaverse and mesh for Microsoft Teams, all the digital twin stuff I've been talking about, are going to be intellectually flexible and able to ingest and synthesize new information about the behavior of people around them, about how that is attached to the business scenario, and then make decisions, recommendations, and build skills and talents off of that. So you want to really think about that as you're going forward. But this creativity is going to be essential. Now, see, I've always believed that being an IT professional was a completely creative job. Maybe I'm odd. I think that, lifecycle management is a little bit creative. I think that, doing these kinds of, SharePoint implementations that I used to do, I found extremely creative because there's a few things that there's a right and a wrong way, but in many things in IT, there's the way that works for your organization. And so it has always been creative, but now we have a direct connection to, I'll call it traditional creativity in the way that we approach the virtual reality today and mixed reality. The next part that's really important is you have to prepare as an IT department. And so whether you lead the IT department, you're a part of it, again, I like to be inclusive to all the different folks who may be out there listening to me today. But, this isn't something that you can just throw over the fence to your IT department and say, hey, turn that on. As people have done to me over the years. Someone hears about a new capability and then all of a sudden they come into your office in IT and like, yeah, why don't I have that? So you want to include your IT department in the planning and ideation process for how you want to embrace the metaverse. And you can start with Mesh for Microsoft Teams as it becomes available, or you can start with something from the Azure stack. It depends upon the business scenario that you have selected. But first, you need to make sure that IT is walking along hand in hand with this kind of business transformation. They have, as I mentioned, new skills to learn. They have new capabilities. There's new developer tools. There's new world building kits. There's all sorts of things that your IT department may never have had to think about before. So you want to make sure to assist them in prioritizing against the other demands we've already put on them. Right? I believe that IT is, to some extent, the unsung hero of the pandemic, because IT departments and people all around the world kept us running as the world was impacted by the pandemic and many other events over the last couple of years. And so they may be a little tired. So you want to give them some extra time. This is a journey we have a little bit of control over. You also want to ensure that they've already embraced Agile service methods. If you're not familiar with Agile service management, it's certainly a term that you can put in your favorite search engine and find out more about. But the idea of the 6-month waterfall IT project is over. I think everybody knows that now, but I'm sure there's still folks who are still go on that journey as well. But the idea of figuring out what is the minimum viable product or service that can be deployed, and then you iterate from there. That applies to IT service management as well, and will be very important in this area. And going back to fundamentals, this is a great opportunity to ensure those identity and tenant hygiene best practices are up to date. And that you're supporting hybrid meetings well, having all that in place, making sure your network is healthy, reviewing your call quality dashboard if you're using voice in Microsoft Teams. These fundamentals of best practice management around Microsoft Teams need to be reviewed as you step into this. Frankly, many people needed to review their Microsoft Teams implementations anyway, because many people did what I call a rapid deployment. I helped hundreds of customers around the world, thousands actually, at the beginning of the pandemic, do these rapid deployments of Microsoft Teams. But now, if you haven't already done it, is the time to go back and take a look at those policies and configurations. Make sure you have all of the first-party and selected third-party apps included in your experience so people are already getting the best out of it. Do things like install Microsoft 365 Learning Pathways and components of Microsoft Viva to really bring together that hybrid work experience and have it work for your employees. Then that cornerstone, that foundation is properly set to begin to layer the metaverse and mesh and other capabilities on top of. So IT professionals have to continue to transform. I think that's the name of our game right now. I've been an IT pro for a really long time, and every 5 years, every decade has its thing that we have to really lean into. And for the future, hybrid work and the metaverse is most definitely it. Yes, was someone trying to speak to me? I thought I heard someone. All righty. Okay. Lastly, being open, right? I've talked about this throughout this presentation, but it's worth reiterating that having hypotheses against your scenarios, testing it and seeing what does and doesn't work, that should be the way you prioritize the work that you do as you move into this new realm, right? Making sure that you're turning data into insights. I see a lot of people around the world compile a lot of data that they never then look at to learn from. And so you need to be making sure, again, that feedback system that you have, make sure that it is lit up and appropriately scaled for your employees and customers to give you information. And frankly, you should be getting that information about their collaboration experience right now. I mentioned that we have a new capability in Microsoft 365 called Experience Insights. It is in preview right now, and it will give you a click down into the behavior of users in your tenant. If you haven't signed up for that preview, I highly encourage it. It will be becoming generally available in reasonably short order. But this data that's actually in the tenant itself with the appropriate aggregation and privacy controls, as a change manager, an IT professional gives you a lot of information to go on about the behavior of your user population. And you can use that to inform the way that you, approach the metaverse. And it's also worth understanding, how is the perception of failure handled in your organization? And sometimes this can just be a team thing. The team that I run at Microsoft has grown quite substantially over time. But one of the most important things about it is that we have an environment of trust with each other. They know, my team knows that if they try something new and there's a problem, I'm going to have their back. And that can be something that maybe it's not your entire organization that embraces this kind of growth mindset. But if you, the people who are going to be responsible for driving the metaverse forward, for maybe implementing mesh in your organization and what have you, if you can do that on the team of early adopters you have, of the champions, of the other IT pros and the creative professionals you bring in, if you can create that kind of a culture, you will be way and far ahead of the folks who try to do this work without that trust. Trust creates emotional elasticity, it creates a creative environment, and both of those things are going to be necessary as we think about how we are going to really implement the metaverse in our world. Making sure that you're systematically gathering data, analyzing it, and acting on the feedback. It's the acting on that feedback that actually creates that element of trust with your end users and customers. We certainly embrace this at Microsoft. We've acted on literally millions of pieces of feedback as we've built products over the years. Specifically in Microsoft Teams, of course, we have our feedback community and hub, and we try to keep that updated. But it's that closing the loop that is actually so important, right? Our impact is truly only limited by our imagination at this point. Let's make sure that we are leading with empathy. The metaverse isn't just about business, and it isn't just about the hard cold data that comes from a manufacturing line, or the data that comes from retail traffic patterns, for instance, or even what my avatar looks like in a Microsoft Teams meeting. Many of you may know Breonna Taylor. She was a victim of gun violence here in the United States. And what was done in her memory was actually create a digital experience that her friends and family could interact with. And it gave them an opportunity to have the positive things of Breonna back into their lives, rather than the constant focus on the nature of her passing. I want to make sure that you think about the fact that the digital universe, this metaverse that we're creating together, will have an emotional impact on people. It is not void of that. Sometimes when you're just doing a PowerPoint presentation, or you're talking about a new technology, we can forget that there is an empathetic an emotional capability to every human experience, and we need to be mindful of that as we build for the future. We can do transformative, amazing, inclusive work in the metaverse. Especially when we think of it from a community-minded perspective that's tied to those business outcomes. But we are complete humans. We are not just a portion of ourselves. You're getting the whole version of Karuana here. And you would be, even if I was, if I was showing you my avatar, or if I was out there with you in the digital metaverse right now, you can't separate the human from the human experience. So don't try. Embrace it. Lean into it. Ensure that you're thinking about that as you continue to design and embrace the metaverse capabilities. I'm really excited about what's next for Microsoft in this space. There are those moments in your career in technology when you're at the precipice of something. I knew when I saw the earliest versions of Microsoft Teams that it was going to be a thing, and that I wanted to be a part of it. And I've been lucky enough to be a part of Microsoft Teams. I felt the same way about SharePoint. I felt the same way about the preceding technologies, but this here now, for me, feels more like the next layer of the internet, right? Because this is going to be such a fundamental change. So we are going to have more announcements and case studies being released. There are early adopter programs for tools and services for developers that are available today, and more coming. I'm sure that Pune will continue to make more announcements and talk about the things that are happening. I'm excited to say that we'll be including the metaverse in some of our community activities, more training we're creating. I have the pleasure of doing that work. And so skilling for Microsoft partners and technology professionals is coming. and of course these communities that I was mentioning, and the feedback programs. So, all of these things are going to be coming soon. Of course, we're running up on Microsoft Ignite. I'll be happy to talk about the metaverse there and everything that's happening with collaborative apps and platforms as I get a chance to speak to Jeff Teeper, who is the president of that area for Microsoft and my boss. And so we'll have a great interview that will come up here in October 12th and 13th. And so, just keep listening, right? But participate. Participate and bring your ideas, bring your creativity, bring your whole human self, and all of the components of that, that creativity, that empathy, that intelligence, that curiosity. Bring that to the metaverse, because we can't wait to see what you will do with it. That is really what's important to us at Microsoft. So that is my conversation about the metaverse, and I believe we have a few minutes for Q&A, which I hope I was able to leave, and I am happy to answer any questions from out there in the world.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that. So some great information there. If anyone does have any questions, please make use of the chat. Or if you prefer to come off mute and ask your question using your microphone, please raise your hand and we shall unmute you.
Can't imagine this audience is going to let me off the hook without asking at least one question. So I am expecting that. Oh, I see a hand.
Hello, Robert. You should be able to unmute yourself now and ask your question.
Okay, thanks. Thanks very much, and thanks for an awesome presentation. For those organizations who are building in AltSpace VR today, because that's what we have to work with, is there going to be a migration path from the mixed reality extensions, or maybe even the worlds that we build in AltSpace VR over to Mesh for Teams?
Yes, that connectivity is some of the work that's being worked on now. Pune is going to be the best person to answer that in terms of some of those technical details. But strategically speaking, the metaverse that you're dealing with today is intentional and will have a path as we continue to expand the capabilities. Think of it like, again, I make this comparison to the Microsoft Teams client, the first one you ever got, right? It was pretty lightweight, if I recall correctly. And so, but over time, we have continued to build on that particular client. Now, some of you will tell me that Microsoft Teams takes up too much memory on your desktop because of that. And we're working on that. So I hear you, definitely. But the same thing will be true for the worlds, the custom worlds, the extensibility, but also more policies and more management around how the metaverse connects to core identity and security services across the Microsoft 365 stack. So the long answer is yes. The short answer as to when and the specifics of what that looks like, I don't have yet. I'm not even sure it's built yet, but I do know that strategically that is part of the plan.
Super. Looking forward to it.
Question. I'm dying for someone to tell me how this was in AltSpace VR. So I hope that this was good.
Doesn't seem to be any questions in the chat. Is there anyone else that would like to ask a question? We've got another hand raised. Bear me 2 seconds. You should be able to unmute yourself now and ask your question. I don't know if you're still muted. It looks like you've unmuted yourself, but we can't hear you.
Thank you, Monty. Thank you for giving me that feedback. Yes, unfortunately, Candace, we want to hear you, but we can't. It's all a grand experiment. While we're waiting to see Paul, if that attendee can come off mute, I did want to mention that I am showing here, kind of flipping back and forth, some additional Learn More links for Microsoft Mesh, for HoloLens, for the Azure Digital Twins that I was discussing. There's another page here for Azure IoT and the Digital Twins process, and we also I have some other content similar to that. Also, the Brianna's Garden app is still available in both Google Play and the App Store. I encourage you to go and check that out. Super well done, wonderful story. And of course, you'll have the links to all of the things that I've mentioned in my content today. I'll make sure that the conference organizers get a copy of my presentation so that you can share that. And then you'll also be able to have the links to the video that I was originally playing. That's basically an inspirational video about what the metaverse could be. So it is out there. Oh, I see another person out there, Paul.
Yep. I'm pretty sure I don't know what your first name is. C.A. Callahan. You should be able to unmute your microphone now and ask your question. Or not.
Doesn't look like that. Oh yeah, I see it.
Yeah. There is a question in the chat while we're just waiting for that. Someone's asked a question saying, if we don't have HoloLenses, would we be able to? Would it be possible to use mesh with other HMD like Oculus or Nreal glasses?
Oh yes, absolutely. The Oculus headset is completely compatible. There's no restriction where you have to use HoloLens to participate in the deeper, a metaverse experience. The thing I was also trying to point out is if you don't have any of those devices, you can still experience that in Microsoft Teams. You're still having a 2D version of the metaverse meeting experience via mesh. That's a huge part of what that team is delivering. But yes, you can certainly use Oculus. When I was filming my episode for Build, my colleague at the time was participating in the metaverse using an Oculus device. So absolutely, we are inclusive of that.
Amazing. Okay, looks like the two people who wanted to ask their questions. Last chance, really, if you can try and get yourself off mute. If not, please do feel free to pop your question into the chat and we'll be able to read it out as well.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you.
Oh, I think they're unmuting and talking in alt space there.
Right.
See, it's all an experiment. Team should be smart enough maybe to know if you unmute her, but it is an audio stream, so.
Yeah. Okay, Matti, if you are still at the outspace, you can relay the message. But of course, pool session will be starting in just 3 minutes or 2 minutes. So yes. we are cutting close. So obviously we just have to use the chat. And Karuana, if you can answer any other follow-up questions in the chat, it would be awesome. Or just or jump into the old space and answer them there.
Absolutely, absolutely. Vesa, will Pune be in this room? Can I just stay on so I can hear her?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
She's going to just follow up here. Hello, Pune.
Fantastic. Hey, great.
Yeah, she's here already.
We see you. But I don't hear you. We don't hear you, Pune. We hear some background noise, but I don't hear your voice. Yep, I had the same thing when I came on, so it's all good.
This is a great question. There was a question dropped in the chat by CA. How we can access the early preview version of Mesh. I would love to, but everyone wants to.
Well, we know those feedback, those early adopter programs. That's one of the things I was mentioning. Early adopter programs, the training, the communities. We'll be spinning all of that up for Mesh and the Metaverse. And so Pune may have more information about some of the product availability, but I'll tell you that we're doing everything that we can to get that ready based on the product availability, hopefully before the end of the year. But this is a long journey, right? There'll be different components. Of course, all of you wonderful organizers will be a part of that early adopter program. We know you all very well. So at this point, I will turn all the good stuff over to Pune. Thank you, Pune, for coming. And thanks for having me, gang. I always appreciate coming to an event with all of you. And I will turn the floor over now. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, Karuana.